because if they did, I would be broke. Hello friends, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to be diving deep into my spending for the month of May as a 22-year-old living in London. I already track everything that I spend and budget every single month, so I thought why not bring this to my YouTube channel and share it with all of you. So we're going to be looking at my fixed costs, which typically don't tend to change month per month, but we're also going to be looking at my variable costs, and I have separated this into two categories. So I have my typical variable costs, which are things that like groceries, eating out, things that typically happen on a month-by-month basis. But I also have specific purchases which are also variable because they don't happen often, but they were specific to this month, which is not like variable costs that I tend to spend every month, if that made any sense. And in terms of these specific purchases that I made, we will talk about them later on. But I just wanted to say these purchases were all very expensive. This month, by far, I spent way more money than I usually do. And that's due to a couple things. I had a 2-week trip and I had a big purchase. We're going to go into all of this, but I just wanted to clarify, like, please know that this month is not a typical one. And I know it's a little bit annoying that this is the first month that I'm sharing, but you'll see I want to keep doing these every single month just because I think why not? It's really interesting and I'm already doing all the work to track, so I might as well share it with you. But I think what I was saying when I went into all of this is that these specific things, most of them I was already saving up for. So it's not like I just spent all this amount of money in this one month out of nowhere, like carelessly. So I know this is the first month of this type of video that I'm posting, but just bear in mind, this is nowhere near how much I spend. It's more than double of what I spend on a typical month. But without further ado, let's get started because I have already blabbered on for too long, I feel. I know money can be a very sensitive topic for a lot of people. And even to myself sometimes, it can still be a sensitive topic, but I do think that being more transparent about money and about how we spend our money can be helpful to a lot of people. So when I was moving to London, I watched a lot of these videos to kind of get an average idea of what a typical 20-something-year-old would spend living here. If these values seem too high or too low, just keep in mind this is my personal life and it will never be the same for anyone. I don't want it to be like this boring disclaimer, but money is just a very personal thing. So please, if you don't agree with my spending, just keep that to yourself. It's just not necessary to kind of share that and make those comments. But I just wanted to say that so that it's out of the way and we can enjoy the rest of the video. Cool. So we're going to be starting with my fixed costs. And this will be things like rent and bills and council tax, all of that good stuff. So I'm very fortunate to be able to share a 1-bedroom with my boyfriend, and we live in zone 4. So we pay each £720 in rent. Our building does include a lot of amenities, which I really love. So I don't have to pay for a gym. We also have like a concierge and post room, so I don't have to be here to receive mail, which is great as well. So yeah, £720 is how much we spend in rent, which I think is really good. We're only a 10-minute walk from the tube station, and like I said, we do live in zone 4, so from what I've heard, this is pretty cheap in a way for London. Like, people would spend closer to 1,000, and we do have that trade-off of a longer commute-ish. We're not really central, but that's how much I spend in rent. And then for bills, it is 73 and 32p. So £73 I think is not bad. Next we have council tax. So council tax, my half is 85.50, which, by the way, for all of these things my boyfriend and I split 50-50 because we've just moved to London last summer and we graduated last summer, so this is our first time in like full-time jobs and we're currently making a very similar amount, so we think it's just fair to split things 50-50. But council tax is 85.50, which again, I think it's good. We live in zone 4. I don't know how much people spend in council tax typically, but because it's 2 of us, it's nice that we get to split it by 2. And then next we have the last thing for my fixed costs, and that's subscriptions. Subscriptions include things like Spotify, it includes Disney Plus, Netflix I luckily don't pay for because my dad pays for that for the family. I think that's all. Again, I'm not too sure, but in terms of subscriptions per month, it is $27.64. And that's everything for the fixed costs part of the video. So now let's move on to my typical variable costs, which, like I mentioned earlier, it's variable costs that I will spend on a typical month, basically every single month. For groceries, this month I spent 124, which is way lower than usual. It's typically groceries I spend like 180, around about there. But like I said, I was on a trip for 2 weeks, so I didn't have to spend as much. So just keep that in mind for the rest of these variable costs now, the typical ones, because typically, of course, I wouldn't be gone for 2 weeks, so they would be a little bit higher. For example, next one is TfL. So TfL is the transport for London, and I spent £60 on that this month, which for me is quite low, because I typically get the travel card between zone 1 and 4, just because I do that commute every day for work. And then for my eating slash going out category, I will be honest, I pretty much only eat out. I don't really go out, like, ever. Eating out was $70.64, which is a little high considering that I was gone for 2 weeks, because I'm not someone that usually spends that much money out. So my budget for the month for eating out is usually about £100. So considering I was gone for half of the month and then I spent £70 is a little bit high, but it's still not bad and it's still under my usual budget. Next we have takeaway. So my boyfriend and I did get one little takeaway in May, and that cost me £8.95. And then we have shopping. Now, shopping is such a variable one for me, because it's one of those things that I don't do every single month, but then there's a month where I just shop a little bit more. So this one I spent what I think is a high amount for shopping in a month, and that was £91.44. I typically don't like to spend more than 50 in just regular shopping, but in May I spent £91.44. Next I have pharmacy goods, and pharmacy goods I keep separate from like my groceries or shoppings, because I consider these things that I need, which is true. Pharmacy goods in May I spent $11.71. And then we have coffee out. So I do have a budget for the coffees that I buy out of my house, because we do have a Nespresso machine and we already ordered the Starbucks Nespresso pods. So me buying coffee out is something that I try and avoid. In May, it was £13.88. And then the last item that I have under my typical variable cost is just miscellaneous. So things that don't kind of fit in these categories. So if I have a month where I'm buying gifts for someone, that'll go under miscellaneous, or just anything that is not in that category would go there. And for May, in terms of miscellaneous spending, I had $23.89. I don't remember what that was for. I do have everything in my proper database, but in terms of this video, I'm just giving you the quick numbers just to get an idea of how much I spent. But that is everything for my typical variable costs. So every month I budget for these, and then I obviously have the budget and then the actual, and that was everything for May. And now we're going to move on to my specific purchases that were just in May and that they don't happen often at all, because if they did, I would be broke. Actually, I haven't done the math yet for how much my fixed and variable costs were without my specific purchase, so I'm going to do that as well to include at the end of this video. Pretty much all of these I was saving up for a few months, so it was nothing that kind of came out of the blue that I just decided, oh, let me go and get this now, and then not be smart about my spending. First thing I have is the credit card statement, which was essentially just the flights that I booked. I went to both Maine in the US, and I also went to Sao Paulo, Brazil. A week in each place, so that's from London, so you can imagine the price was quite expensive, and I spent $1,032.06 on flights, and I did buy them a month-ish before, a month and a half, but the credit card statement, because of the date that I bought it on, only came out in May. I count my credit card statement into the budget of the month it's actually coming out of, and not the month that I bought it. Just for me, that makes a little bit more sense. So yeah, the flights were just over £1,000. So then the money that I actually spent on the trip itself was $418.42. So this would include anything that I bought while I was there. Maine, I didn't spend too much money because I was going there for my sister's graduation, which I actually posted a vlog about of this trip if you want to see it. But I was going there for my sister's graduation, and they still had some money left in their food hall card. So a lot of our meals we actually got for free, me and my family, because if they don't use up that money in the food hall, it just goes back to the school, so we might as well eat here. So that was really helpful for me not to have to spend so much money out on food. And then in Brazil, I was staying with my family in my grandma's apartment, so my mom paid for a lot of the groceries that we had, that we should cook there. If we did go out, I would buy my food, but I also spent a lot in terms of buying treats to bring back from Brazil that I really love, because I'm from there and we don't have a lot of that here in London, and the things that we do are extremely overpriced, so I'm there, I might as well bring it back with me. So the 418 42 was how much I spent over the 2 weeks that I was away. While I was in Brazil, I also got 8 new tattoos. They're all fairly small. I did just post a recent TikTok of a little mini tattoo tour. If you want to see that, I'll link it down below. But the tattoos cost me in pounds 444 and 3p. I feel like for 8 tattoos that's pretty good, especially because the artist I went to is such a good artist. So if I was to get the same tattoos with an equivalent level of artists in London, I do feel like it'd be upwards of £800. But because of the conversion rate from Brazilian reais to pounds, I was able to pay under 500, under 450 even, which I was super happy with because the work he did was really, really good. And then the biggest purchase of all this month for me, which is like what kind of takes this month to a whole other level of expensive, was I got a new Mac, and that cost me £2,089.64. Love that for me. But again, I have been saving up for tattoos, the Mac, and the flights for a few months now. I didn't just decide I needed a new laptop and went and bought it, but I still know that I'm very privileged to be able to have spent all of this money in 1 month, like that came out of my account. But again, I was saving up for it, and I didn't just decide, let me go get some tattoos, let me buy myself a new laptop out of nowhere and be like super chill about it. I could never do that. But that's everything in terms of the specific purchases. Let's get on to the totals now, shall we? So let me quickly add up the different sections, and then I'll give you a breakdown of the totals of my fixed costs, variable, specific, and then a grand total of everything that I spent in May. Okay, so let me just double check that this all adds up. Beautiful, it all matches the total. Cool, so now that I've done the math, I will share with you the total spending. So for my fixed costs in May, which is typical of every month, I spent $906.46. For my typical variable costs in May, I spent $380.75. So now for the specific purchase of May, the total was £3,984.15. And that brings us to a grand total of $5,271.36. Saying that number out loud and knowing that that's going to be on the internet scares me a little bit, because I will say it's just a lot of money. Like, I'm very aware that £5,000 is a lot of money, and for me to be spending that in 1 month is crazy, and I didn't think I would. But like I said, a lot of these things, which close to £4,000 of this was just things that I won't be spending again. Like, I'm not going to be spending $2,000 on a computer for at least 4, 5, 6 years. I don't know. And I don't go to Brazil very often. The last time I was there was 2 years ago. So again, I don't think this was that crazy. If I take away, I don't know if you can see that, if it's going to focus, but if I take away the specific purchases from my total, then I spent $1,287 on fixed and variable costs. And that brings us to the end of today's video. I really hope you enjoyed me breaking down every little thing that I spend. Like I said in the beginning, I find these videos really interesting and also helpful at times when doing research about different cities. Thank you so much for staying till the end of this video and for watching it all the way through. I really do appreciate your support. If you want to see more videos from me and more monthly spending updates, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell down below. That would mean so much to me. And I'll see you in my next video. Bye!